Every story I cover on this channel is grounded in something real. Tonight, that changes. Tonight I'm covering 3 things that most people would dismiss before I finish the sentence. But I've spent time with these accounts, and there are patterns here that are hard to ignore. Across the country, hunters and hikers, people who have never met, never compared notes, have reported this same creature. Bipedal, tall, wrong proportions for anything that should be out there. The descriptions are consistent enough that it has a name, multiple names depending on where you are. The stairs in the woods are different. Search and rescue workers have been finding freestanding staircases deep in the backcountry for years. Normal staircases, in the middle of nowhere. And there are people in forestry who know exactly what they are, and have been told not to go near them. When someone does, when someone actually climbs, the accounts stop. And then there's the mimic, something that copies human voices. Not perfectly at first, but it learns, it improves. The people who have come back from those woods all describe the same progression. I don't have explanations for any of this, but these woods are not empty. I work nights at a packaging plant outside of Marshfield, Wisconsin. Have for 6 years. The drive home is 40 minutes on county roads. No streetlights, no other traffic after 2 a.m. Just trees on both sides and the occasional deer in the ditch. I know that road better than I know my own house. It was a Thursday in late October. Shift ended at 2 a.m. I was tired, but not unusually so. No fog, no rain, just cold. The kind of cold that makes your headlights look like they're cutting through glass. I was about 15 minutes out when something crossed the road. Fast. Too fast for a deer. I hit the brakes, but not fast enough. There was a thud. Not hard, not like hitting a body at full speed. More like clipping something heavy. The impact jolted the steering wheel slightly to the right. I stopped, sat there for a moment with the engine running, headlights cutting into the tree line. My hands were tight on the wheel. I'd hit deer before, twice. Both times the instinct was the same. Pull over, check the damage, see if the animal was still alive. So I did. I put the truck in park and stepped down. The air hit me like a wall. I walked around the front bumper, flashlight in hand. There was a dent. Small. The kind you get from clipping something at an angle. I swept the beam across the road. It was lying in the ditch about 10 feet ahead, on its side, not moving. At first, I thought it was a large dog. The shape was wrong for a deer. Too compact, too heavy through the chest. I took a step closer. Then, it moved. It pushed itself up slowly, like it was working through pain. One arm first, then the other. Then it stood. On 2 legs. It was tall, taller than me, and I'm 6 foot. The body was wrong. Shoulders too wide, arms too long. Hands that didn't look like hands. The fur was dark, almost black, and it was matted on one side where I'd clipped it. The head turned toward me. I couldn't move. My flashlight beam was fixed on it, and I couldn't lower it, couldn't look away. The eyes caught the light. They reflected it, the way an animal's eyes do in the dark. But the face beneath them was not the face of any animal I'd ever seen. It opened its mouth. I'd muttered something when I saw the dent. Something stupid. I don't even remember the exact words. Something like Jesus Christ or damn it. Just a reflex. It said it back to me. Not perfectly. The voice was wrong. Too low, too wet, like it was coming from the wrong kind of throat. But the words were mine. My tone, my inflection. It had heard me say it 30 seconds ago, and it repeated it back. And it was looking at me the whole time. Then it smiled. I don't know how else to describe it. The mouth pulled back from the teeth and it held there. It knew what a smile was. It knew what that would do to me. I ran. Not toward the truck, away from it. I don't know why. Panic doesn't work the way you think it will. I just ran, off the road and into the ditch and up the other side toward the tree line. Behind me, I heard it move. Fast. Not the sound of something running on 4 legs. Footsteps, 2 at a time, closing the distance. Something hit the ground behind me and I felt the air move. It had jumped. It landed close. I didn't turn around to see where. I changed direction. To my left there was a structure. I'd passed it 100 times on this road. An old barn set back maybe 40 yards from the road. The door had been hanging open for months. I noticed it before and thought nothing of it. I ran for it. I hit the door at full speed and stumbled inside. The smell hit me immediately. Animal and rot and something else. Something I couldn't place. Something lived in. I stopped, let my eyes adjust. The barn had been gutted years ago. No stalls, no equipment, just open space and a dirt floor. But it wasn't empty. Along the far wall, piled against the concrete, there was a nest. That's the only word for it. Branches, insulation pulled from somewhere, what looked like animal skins, old clothes mixed in, a jacket, a pair of boots, and bones, scattered in the dirt near the nest, small enough that I couldn't tell what they belonged to. Maybe animals. I wanted them to be animals. I understood then where I was. The door behind me creaked. I didn't look. I moved. There was a loft, a narrow ladder against the back wall, leading up to a platform where hay used to be stored. I climbed it fast, hand over hand, and pulled myself up. From the loft, I could see it standing in the doorway. It filled the frame. It was looking up at me, and for a second, it just watched. Patient. Like it had done this before. And then, it started to climb. The ladder shook under its weight. I looked around. The loft had a window on the far side, small, maybe 2 feet wide, single pane glass. I didn't think. I kicked it. The glass shattered outward. Cold air rushed in. I pulled myself through the frame just as I felt something catch my forearm. 3 lines of white-hot pain. I didn't stop. I dropped to the ground outside and ran. I didn't stop running until I reached my truck. I got in, locked the doors, and drove home without looking in the mirror once. When I got inside, I went straight to the bathroom. My forearm was bleeding through my jacket sleeve. 3 parallel gashes just below the elbow, deep enough that I could see white underneath. I cleaned them and wrapped them tight. Told myself to go to urgent care in the morning and say I caught my arm on sheet metal at the plant. The scars are still there. 3 lines evenly spaced. They healed thick and raised, the kind that don't fade. I called in sick the next day, and drove past the barn on my way to urgent care. The door was closed. I'd left it open when I ran out. I know I did. I remember the cold air hitting me as I climbed through the window. The door was closed. I didn't stop. I didn't go back. I changed my route to work 2 days later, and I haven't driven that road since. I don't know what it is. I know what it did. It hit the ground after I clipped it. It stood up. It spoke to me. And it smiled. It chased me into its home, and it tried to hold on to me when I left. And somewhere out there, on a county road outside Marshfield, there's an old barn with a door that closes on its own. I did trail maintenance for the state forestry department for 3 years. Brush clearing, drainage repair, marking washouts. Unglamorous work. Most of it was solo. They'd drop you off at a trailhead with a radio and a lunch, and you wouldn't see another person until the end of the day. I didn't mind it. The woods were quiet. The work was physical, but mindless enough that you could just let your brain shut off and just move. It was early June when I found the first one. I was working a stretch of trail in the backcountry, about 11 miles from the nearest access road. The area was dense, old growth mixed with second growth, thick canopy, not a lot of light hitting the forest floor. I was clearing a drainage ditch that had silted up over the winter when I looked up and saw something through the trees about 40 yards off the trail. It had straight edges. You work in the woods long enough, you learn to read the landscape. Fallen logs, rock formations, root systems. Everything curves, everything sags, everything leans. Straight edges don't happen. Not out here. I set my shovel down and walked toward it. It was a staircase. A normal, ordinary staircase. The kind you'd find in any house in any suburb in the country. Wooden frame, beige carpet on the steps, a simple railing on one side. About 10 steps tall. It just stood there in the middle of the forest, freestanding, going from the ground up to nothing. No platform at the top, no door, no structure of any kind. Just steps leading to open air and trees. I stood there for a long time looking at it. My brain kept trying to find the explanation. Old foundation, some kind of surveyor's marker, debris from a demolished structure carried in by flooding. None of it worked. The carpet was clean. The wood wasn't weathered. It looked like someone had cut it out of a house that morning and set it down here. I took my phone out and photographed it. 3 shots from different angles. Then I left. Back at the crew base that evening, I mentioned it to Dale. He was the senior guy on our team, mid-50s, had been with the department over 20 years, knew every inch of backcountry trail in the district. I pulled up the photos and showed him. His face changed. Not dramatically. He didn't go white or anything like that. His jaw just tightened and he looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen from him before. Something close to concern. "Did you touch it?" he asked. I said no. He nodded, handed the phone back without looking at the photos again. "Don't go back there," he said. I asked him what it was. He didn't answer. Just picked up his coffee and walked away. I asked around that night. The other guys on the crew knew exactly what I was talking about. None of them wanted to discuss it. One of them, a younger guy named Marcus, just shook his head and said, "You see one, you walk away. That's it, that's the rule." I tried to press him. Where did the rule come from? Who made it? Marcus looked at me for a second, then said something I've thought about every day since. Nobody made it. It's just what you do. I went back the next day. I know that was stupid. I know Dale told me not to. But I wanted to see it again. I wanted to stand in front of it and understand what I was looking at. Because the alternative, that it was something I couldn't explain, wasn't something I was willing to accept. I found the exact spot. I knew the drainage ditch, the fallen log 20 feet to the east, the rock formation to the north. I knew exactly where it had been. It was gone. Not moved, not knocked over. Gone. The ground where it had stood looked the same as the ground around it. Same leaf litter, same moss, same soil. Like nothing had ever been there. Except for one thing. The insects were gone. Not just in the exact footprint where the stairs had been. In a circle all around it, maybe 15 feet across, there was nothing. No ants in the dirt, no beetles in the moss, no birds overhead. The silence was total in a way that silence in the woods never is. Even on the quietest days, there's always something. A rustle, a click, a wing beat somewhere. Here, there was absolutely nothing. I stood at the edge of that circle for a long time. And then I left again. 2 weeks later, I found a second one. Different location entirely. 1.5 miles north, in a part of the backcountry I'd only been in twice before. I almost walked right past it. It was set back from the trail, partially obscured by a cluster of birch trees. But I saw the straight edge and I stopped. Same as before. Wooden frame, beige carpet, 10 steps, railing on the right side. Freestanding, leading up to nothing. But this time there was something on it. A shoe. A child's shoe. Small, maybe size 4 or 5. A sneaker, white with a red stripe. It was sitting on the top step by itself, placed neatly against the railing like someone had set it there deliberately. One shoe. I didn't get any closer than 20 feet. I didn't take any photos. I turned around and walked back to the trailhead. I put in my notice the following Monday, told them I was moving out of state. It wasn't true, but it didn't matter. I just needed to not be out there anymore. On my last day, there was a new hire in the crew, a kid named Ryan, fresh out of college, the first forestry job. Eager, asked questions about everything. We were sitting at base after a day's work, and he was asking me about the backcountry. What to watch out for, where the bad terrain was. Standard stuff. Then he paused and asked me something. "Hey, you ever come across anything weird out there? Like, really weird?" I looked at him. "What do you mean?" I said. He thought about it for a second. "Like a staircase," he said. "Just out in the middle of the woods, like someone put it there." My stomach dropped. "Yeah," I said. "I've seen one." "Me too," he said. He was almost smiling. "Found one last week, out past mile marker 7, just sitting there. Strangest thing I've ever seen." I asked him if he'd touched it. He looked at me like I'd asked a stupid question. "Yeah," he said. "I climbed it." I didn't ask him what happened at the top. I didn't ask him what he saw. I didn't want to know. I finished my last shift, drove home, and I haven't set foot in those woods since. I don't know what's up there. I don't know what happens when you climb. I don't know whose shoe that was. But I think about Ryan every day. And I think about the fact that Dale never said what happens to the people who don't listen. Maybe because he already knows. I go backpacking alone. Have for years. It's the one thing I do that's entirely mine. No one else's schedule, no one else's pace. Just me and the trail and however far I can get before dark. I was 3 days into a solo trip in the Ozarks when it started. The first night, I'd set up camp off trail, about a quarter mile from the nearest path. A small clearing, flat ground, good drainage. The kind of spot you find after years of knowing what to look for. I was in the tent, reading by headlamp, when I heard someone call my name. Not loud, not a shout. Just my name. Spoken at a normal volume, maybe 30 yards out. The way someone would say it if they'd spotted you across a parking lot. I sat up and listened. Nothing. I unzipped the tent and looked down, headlamp on, sweeping the tree line. Nothing moved. No footprints in the soft ground at my sight, no sounds at all except the normal night noise. Crickets, the occasional rustle of something small in the underbrush. I told myself it was a trick of the wind, or half sleep. I'd been up since 5 a.m. and I was tired. I went back to reading. It happened again the next night. Same thing. My name, clear and calm, from somewhere in the dark beyond my camp. This time, I didn't get up. I just lay there and listened. After about 10 seconds of silence, I heard it again. Same voice, same tone, same distance. Except, this time, it wasn't my name. It was my brother's name. My brother's name is not a common name. It's not something you'd hear someone yelling in the woods by accident. And the voice that said it, I didn't recognize it. It wasn't my voice. It wasn't anyone I knew. But it said his name with the same casual familiarity I'd use. Like it knew him. Like it was looking for him. I stayed in the tent. The voice didn't come back that night. The third night was when things changed. I'd been hiking since morning, covered about 8 miles. I was tired, genuinely tired. The kind of bone-deep exhaustion that makes everything feel far away. I set up camp later than I wanted. The light was already going when I got the tent up. I was eating dinner, sitting on a fallen log with my back to a tree, when I heard footsteps. Not animal footsteps. Human ones. Deliberate and spaced out. Moving through the underbrush about 20 yards to my left. I turned my headlamp in that direction. Nothing. The footsteps stopped the moment my light moved. I sat very still. The woods went quiet. Not the comfortable quiet of nightfall, but the held breath quiet of something waiting. Then, from my right side this time, maybe 15 yards away, I heard my mother's voice. "Danny, dinner's ready." My mother's been dead for 4 years. I know exactly what her voice sounds like. I've heard it in my head 1,000 times since she died. In dreams, in the half second before I fully wake up, in moments where muscle memory triggers something deeper than thought. I know the way she said my name, the slight emphasis on the first syllable, the way it dropped at the end like a question she already knew the answer to. This was it. Exactly it. I stopped breathing. "Danny, come inside. It's getting cold." Something she used to say, word for word. The exact cadence, the exact tone. As if she were standing there right at the edge of the trees, wiping her hands on a dish towel, looking at me the way she used to when I'd stayed outside too long. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just sat there gripping my fork and staring into the dark where the voice had come from. Nothing moved. Nothing stepped into my headlamp's reach. After a long time, the crickets started up again. About an hour later, it spoke again. This time it tried my brother's voice. It was close. The pitch was right, the general tone. But something was off. The words were wrong. Too formal, too careful. My brother doesn't talk like that. It sounded like it understood the voice, but not the person behind it. Like it had the sound, but hadn't figured out how to use it yet. "Hey, Danny, are you out there?" My brother's never called me Danny. Not once. He calls me Dan. Has since we were kids. It knew my mother well enough to get her perfect on the first try. But my brother, it was still working on him. It didn't try again that night. I should have packed up and left that night. I know that. I've turned it over in my mind 100 times since. I should have broken camp, hiked out by headlamp, driven home. I didn't. I'm not entirely sure why. Part of it was the exhaustion. I was running on maybe 5 hours of sleep over 2 days, and the idea of hiking in the dark felt impossible. Part of it was something else. Something I don't want to look at too closely, even now. The truth is, hearing my mother's voice felt good. Even knowing it wasn't her. Even knowing what it was. It felt good to hear. The fourth night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat in the tent with the flap open, the headlamp off, and I listened. The woods were alive with sound. Wind rushed through the canopy, animals moving in the brush. The creek about 100 yards down the hill. Around 2 a.m., it spoke again. This time it was my brother. His actual voice. Not just his name. His voice. The cadence, the slight rasp he gets when he's tired. The way he trails off mid-sentence when he's thinking. "Yeah, I don't know, man. And then it stopped. Like it had been caught mid-sentence. Like it hadn't finished the thought. I sat there in the dark, heart hammering, and I waited. It didn't finish. It didn't speak again. But something about the way it had stopped, the trailing off, the unfinished thought, that bothered me more than anything else. Because that's exactly how my brother talks. He does that. He trails off. He leaves sentences hanging. It knew that. I packed up at dawn and started hiking out. I didn't stop, I didn't look back. I covered the 8 miles to the trailhead in 4 hours, and I drove home without stopping for gas or food. I haven't gone back. Not to that part of the Ozarks. Not to any woods where I'd be alone overnight. I told my brother about it. Not all of it, just enough. I told him something in the woods had mimicked his voice. He laughed it off, said it was probably a bird or I was half asleep, or both. Maybe. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. The night he used my mother's voice, it got her right on the first try. Perfect, exactly right, every detail. My brother's voice, it took 2 nights to get there. The first night it just said his name. By the 4th night it was doing full sentences, getting the rhythm right, the way he trails off. It was learning. It was practicing. And on that morning when I was breaking camp and packing my gear, I heard something I almost missed under the sound of my own movement. My own voice, saying my own name. Quiet, calm, getting the tone exactly right.